Now close your eyes, extinguish all the lights in your mind, and imagine yourself in Rome 2,000 years ago as a 16-year-old girl. Your family is noble. Your surname is as old and respected as the marble columns of the empire. Your future is bright. Perhaps you will marry a powerful senator. Perhaps you will become one of the most influential women in Rome. Life for you is like a dream passing behind safe walls, filled with silk fabrics and the scent of roses. But this dream turns into an irreversible nightmare in a single night. It all starts with a gold-leafed scroll left at your door at midnight by a messenger with heavy steps. The messenger's face is nothing but a shadowed figure in a cloak, but what he holds shines in the torchlight. It is tied with an imperial purple ribbon. Inside is your name, and beneath it, the Emperor's seal, that cold, indisputable seal that carries the weight of law. To your family, this is an honor. As your father opens the scroll with trembling hands, he says, "This is a great grace," his voice cracking. Your mother avoids your eyes as she begins to prepare you, taking out your finest dress. The Emperor has chosen us. You should be proud, they say. But you caught the expression in the eyes of that guard standing at the threshold. Not admiration, not respect, pity, perhaps pure fear. That guard was looking at you not like a princess, but like a sacrificial lamb waiting at the slaughterhouse door, as if he were opening a gate that you didn't know about. But all of Rome knew in whispers. A gate of no return. And know this now. 1 week later, the girl who leaves that house, that safe haven, will not return. Even if her body returns, her soul will not. Even if she returns, what comes back will not be you. Only a breathing shell. A hollowed out statue with the light gone from its eyes. Much has been hidden in Rome's history. Much has been swept under the rug. History books always tell us of victories. Caesar's conquests, the peace Augustus brought, the glory of the Colosseum. But they rarely tell of the dark side of the coin. Wars, conspiracies, bloody murders committed on the Senate steps. These are known acceptable brutalities, but none were kept as carefully, as meticulously hidden as the crimes committed in the depths of the Palatine Hill, behind those thick walls. Why? Because what was destroyed here was not just people. It was the conscience of a civilization. It was the place where an empire completely severed its tie with the concept of humanity. This story is about the Garden of Venus. Such an elegant name, isn't it? Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. But this name is one of history's most cruel, most sick ironies. Because this is a place Rome never wanted to see. A place historians spoke of only in whispers for centuries, and a place whose name the victims could not even utter. And if this story disturbs you, good, truly good, because it should disturb you. If it doesn't, you have lost a piece of your humanity. That unease you feel while sitting in your comfortable chair is the ghosts of the past touching you. Welcome to Whispered History. Don't forget to hit the like button. And write in the comments at which moment of the story you were most disturbed. At which point you said, "I can't take this anymore." Now, let's begin. But I must warn you, this story does not start well. It has no happy intro, no hopeful development, and it ends even worse. To understand this hell, we must first understand its architect, that dark mind. The first thing you need to know about Caligula is this. He was not born a monster. No baby is born a monster. He was made, constructed, just like a weapon, forged piece by piece with pain, fear, and trauma. Think for a moment. Try to empathize. You're forced to live in the same house with the man who killed your father, who destroyed your family. Moreover, that man is the most powerful man in the world, Emperor Tiberius. You have breakfast with him every morning. As he sips his wine with the same lips that gave the order for your family's death, you have to look at him, You have to serve him. Every evening you smile and say, "Good night, Majesty." And inside, every second, every moment you breathe, you imagine killing that man, choking him, taking revenge. But you can't. One wrong look, one trembling tone of voice means you too will be thrown off that cliff. Because that man is the emperor. And you are just a child surrounded by wolves, trying to survive. This was Caligula's life from age 12 to 18, on the island of Capri. Historians describe Capri as a pleasure island, but for young Caligula, it was an asylum, beside Tiberius, in a palace that smelled of paranoia, swam in blood, where screams of torture were listened to as music every day. 6 years, easy to say, waking up with the fear of death every day for 6 years. For 6 years, he couldn't speak his mother's name. He couldn't mourn his mother who starved to death in exile. He couldn't ask how his brothers died. He couldn't share the pain of his older brother who died in a dungeon eating his own flesh. He just smiled. He bowed his head. He became a perfect actor. He played so well that even Tiberius was surprised by his obedience. But this game had a price. He felt everything inside him rotting. He left his humanity, his mercy, his soul on that island. Do you know what they call this in psychology? The freeze response. When under threat, the human brain does 3 things: fight, flight, or freeze. When you have no option to fight or flight, your brain finds a third way, the most dangerous way. Stop feeling. Shut down the emotional breakers. Hide the pain. Separate the soul from the body. Kill yourself to survive. Choke the human inside so the monster outside can't hurt you. This is exactly what Caligula did. That gentle, loving child died on the rocks of Capri. And when that frozen child one day took the head of Rome, no one could have guessed that the suppressed darkness inside him would swallow an entire empire. But we aren't there yet. First, let's see how that child turned into a monster. How that mask fell off. 37 AD. Tiberius died. The people of Rome celebrated the death of the old tyrant. The Senate placed Germanicus' son, young Caligula, descended from the hero general, on the throne. And Rome went mad. Truly mad. For 3 months, sacrifices were made. Feasts were held. People danced in the streets. People cried tears of joy. "We are saved," they shouted. "The golden age has arrived. The dark days are over." Everyone thought Caligula would be noble, merciful, and strong like his father. In the first months, they seemed right. Caligula lowered taxes. He pardoned prisoners who were unjustly jailed. He lifted censorship. The people loved him as if they worshipped him. "Our star, our baby," they called out to him. But then something happened. A dark twist of fate, an illness, maybe poison, maybe brain fever. No one knows for sure. But after that illness, Caligula woke up different. It was as if that fever had burned the last braking mechanism in his brain to ash. It was as if one person went to bed. Someone entirely different woke up. Something had changed in his eyes. His gaze lingered on people longer, blinking less. He was examining the person across from him not as a human, but as an object. His smiles were colder. Now just a mechanical muscle movement hanging on his lips, never reaching his eyes. And one night, at a banquet, he sat next to a senator. He leaned in. He had a strange, empty expression on his face. He whispered in his ear, "With a single word, I can have you killed. Right now. Right here. In front of your wife's eyes. And no one can say a thing. Because I am a god." The senator had to smile. With trembling lips, he pretended to laugh at that terrible joke. Because if he didn't smile, he would die right there. That was the moment Rome understood. The new emperor was not the old emperor. Tiberius was evil, yes. But Tiberius knew he was an evil human. He knew his limits. Caligula, however, no longer knew. He had begun to think of himself as a living deity. Now I'm going to ask you something. Put yourself in the place of Aurelia's father, and be honest. If a soldier came to your door at midnight, holding that purple-sealed paper and said, "Your daughter is summoned by the Emperor," what would you do? You can't refuse, because refusal means treason. Treason means death. It means the destruction of not just you, but your entire lineage. You can't accept, because accepting means knowing your daughter will never come back. But you have no choice. This is how it started. In the winter months of 39 AD, letters went out to Rome's noble families. Inside was a simple sentence: "We would be honored to see your daughter at the palace." The letter was polite, but the seal was red. And that red seal meant you had no right to say no. The first to go was Aurelia, 15 years old, her father a consul, her mother from an aristocratic family. She had everything. As she entered the palace gates, she felt lucky. Maybe I'll be a lady in waiting, she thought naively. But the first thing she heard when she entered wasn't palace music. It was the sound of another girl crying, a muffled, distant sob. And Aurelia understood in that moment. This wasn't for honor. This was for survival. But it was too late. The door had closed behind her with that heavy metallic sound. And there was no one to welcome her to the Garden of Venus. Only silent servants and cold walls. The garden was beautiful. I must admit, it was mesmerizing. Pink marble walls, silk cushions, gold leaf, exotic flowers in every corner. A dizzying scent of roses in the air. And that is exactly why it was terrifying. Because if a hell looks like this, it takes too long to understand that it is hell. And when you understand, there is nowhere left to run. In the first days, the girls whispered questions to each other. Why are we here? What will we do? When will we go home? There was no answer. The walls were deaf. Only servants came and went. They brought gold-embroidered dresses, jewelry, perfumes. They adorned the girls like dolls. And then, one night, the door opened. All the girls held their breath. Caligula walked in. He was smiling. He was polite. He even made jokes. "Welcome," he said, his voice like velvet. "You will be happy here. I promise you." And that night, he just talked. Just asked questions. Just acted politely. Some of the girls relaxed. Maybe it's not terrible, they thought. Maybe it's exaggerated. Hope. The most dangerous instrument of torture. But Aurelia saw that expression in the Emperor's eyes that night. Even while smiling, his eyes were not smiling. His eyes were filled with that curious and cruel expression of a child examining an ant before burning it. And the next night, everything changed. The mask fell. Because there was a reason Caligula was kind the first night. To be more cruel the second night. Breaking someone with hope is more pleasurable than breaking someone without it. The most effective method of torture in psychology isn't physical pain. It is the torture of waiting. Not knowing. Not knowing when he will come. Not knowing what he will do. Not knowing what the end will be. And the Garden of Venus did exactly this. The girls would wake up in the morning. Maybe they would be summoned today. Maybe not today. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow night. Every footstep created panic. Every door opening was like a heart attack. And then, randomly, a name was read. Sometimes a girl would be summoned and return 2 hours later. Her eyes red, her face frozen. She said nothing. Sometimes she didn't come back. Her bed remained empty. Sometimes Caligula would just call one to his side, talk for hours, then send her away. The next day, he calls the same girl again, but this time, there was no system. There was nothing predictable. Only chaos. Only pure fear. And this fear, the moment one of them, one night, tore a piece from her silk dress and hanged herself from the ceiling. No, that's enough. Take a deep breath. Because that isn't what's truly terrifying. What's truly terrifying is what Caligula did after that. One night, the girls were suddenly prepared. Frantic servants, the most expensive oils, the rarest fabrics. A special night, they said. The emperor is giving a grand banquet. You will all be there. At first, a foolish hope blossomed in the girls' hearts. Maybe this is a good thing, they thought. Maybe they will show us to our families. But when they entered the banquet hall, they understood. This wasn't a dinner. This was a theatre. And they were the actors. The splendor of the hall was dizzying. Members of the Senate, generals, wealthy merchants, they were all there. And in the middle, there was a platform. Caligula called the girls one by one, and loudly, so everyone could hear. He began to make comments, like a slave trader. This one is too thin. We need to feed her. This one is beautiful, but too shy. I don't like the shy ones. This one is perfect. Just the way I want. Obedient. Some of the girls were crying silently. Some were frozen. Their bodies were there, but their souls had left that room. But the real tragedy was the men sitting in the hall. Because in the corner of that hall sat Aurelia's father. He was watching what was being done to his own daughter. He was watching the humiliation of his own flesh and blood. And he had to smile. Because if he didn't smile, both he and his daughter would die right there, in that moment. This was the true horror of the Garden of Venus. It didn't just break the girls, it broke everyone who could protect them, the most powerful men in society. It made them accomplices. Families sat silently, watched, applauded, and with every passing night, with every forced laughter, they died a little more. But the worst had not yet come. Because at the end of the night, Caligula turned to Aurelia's father with his goblet in hand. The hall fell into a deathly silence, and with that poisonous smile, he said, "Your daughter is very beautiful. You must be very happy today, aren't you?" And a father, swallowing the lump in his throat, had to say, "I am very happy, Majesty. This is an honor for me." Aurelia looked at her father at that moment, and she saw the light in her father's eyes go out. That night, Aurelia didn't just lose her innocence, she lost her father too. Some things in history get lost. Some things are erased. But some things, even if erased, remain like ghosts. Suetonius, when writing about Caligula, says, "Some of the girls, after being removed from the palace, never spoke again. Their tongues weren't cut, but their souls were silenced." Dio Cassius. Some families, after taking their daughters back, lock them in the dark rooms of their houses, as if they weren't there. Tacitus. Some girls committed suicide, but the number of suicides was never recorded. Does what isn't recorded mean it didn't exist? No. It just becomes even more terrifying. Because the more it is hidden, the more real it becomes. And Aurelia's story was not recorded either. But whispers remained. Her father committed suicide a year after that night. The reason is not in the records. Her mother never left the house. She never saw the sun again. And Aurelia? No one mentioned Aurelia again. Her name became a taboo in Roman society. But this doesn't mean she didn't exist. It means Rome wanted to forget out of shame. Time passed. Pain accumulated. Anger boiled underground like a volcano. And finally, the day of reckoning came. 41 AD January. The Palatine Games. The air was cold and tense. Caligula rose from his seat. He was tired. He wanted to take a bath. Cryptoporticus, the underground corridor, dark, silent, a long desolate tunnel passing between damp walls, and there in the shadows, Cassius Chaerea was waiting. Chaerea, the guard who had served Caligula for years, endured his insults for years. But that night, he couldn't take it anymore. The first blow landed on his neck. A hard, brutal blow. Caligula tried to scream. Maybe he wanted to shout, "I am God!" But no sound came out, because his throat was cut. Then the second, the third, the fourth, more than 30 stab wounds, and Caligula, as he choked in his own blood on that cold stone floor, was no longer a god, was no longer the ruler of Rome. He was just a human, a scared, suffering, trembling, and dying human. And perhaps for the first time in his life, he was truly defenseless, just like his victims. Caligula died. But the Garden of Venus? It didn't close immediately. Logic expects the dungeon to open when the monster dies, right? But politics doesn't work that way. Because if it closed, what was inside would be revealed. And if what was inside was revealed, all the most powerful families of Rome, those senators, those generals, would be guilty. They had watched. They had remained silent. They had even applauded. So the system had to continue, but silently, covered up. Claudius took the throne, Caligula's uncle. Do you know what his first act was? He sent the girls back, but not by setting them free. It was a deal. He gave them chests full of gold. He gave them silk dresses. He gave them dowries. And with it, he gave a message. Forget. Take the money and forget. If you don't forget, your life is over. The families accepted. Because if they didn't accept, both their daughters and themselves would die. And thus, the Garden of Venus was buried in history. But those girls were not buried. They returned to their homes, but they never truly returned. Some never married, because no one wanted a stained girl. Some married, but they cried on their wedding night, and they never truly laughed again. Some had children, but they couldn't touch their children, because touching reminded them of those dark nights. And some just disappeared, wiped away among the dusty pages of history. They remained only as a scribbled out name in a corner of a family tree that no one mentions. Now you might say, this was 2,000 years ago. Why does it matter? Because this story is not just about Caligula. This story is about power. How does unchecked power change a human? How does absolute power turn a human into a monster? And more importantly, how does a society, a system, protect that monster? Because it wasn't just Caligula who created the Garden of Venus. One man couldn't do it alone. Everyone who created it, who built that door, who brought those girls there, who watched in silence at those banquets, senators, generals, families, the people, they are all guilty. They all carried mortar to the bricks of that garden. And history teaches us this. Evil wins not because of evil people, it wins because of good people who remain silent, who say, as long as it doesn't touch me, let it be. If this story disturbed you, good. That lump in your stomach is the voice of your conscience. If it angered you, good. And if you said, something like this must never happen again, look around you. Look at today's world. Is there anyone worshipping power? Anyone rewarding those who stay silent? Anyone blaming the victims? If there is, the Garden of Venus still stands. Only its walls are not pink marble, but concrete. Its name is something else, but the darkness inside is the same. And if you want to stop this, there's only one thing you need to do. Speak up. Disturb. Do not ignore. Because Aurelia couldn't speak. You can speak. Don't forget to subscribe to Whispered History, and write in the comments which part of this story disturbed you the most. Because remember, being disturbed is the first step of change. See you.